Meantime, lots of activity at Lazard Park and West Monroe today. A big announcement was made about the Northeast Louisiana Celtic Festival. Charles Burkett was there.
You're probably wondering why I'm wearing my kilt today, and the West Monroe officials have officially announced the return of the Northeast Louisiana Celtic Festival to Lazard Park on Saturday, October 5th. And they're really excited, of course, about the normal lineup, of course, the music, but they're also offering something new this year for the kids.
You've heard a lot about the Highland Games, which are for professional and amateur but adult athletes. Last year we had the concept of we need to bring in a children's Highland Games so that children can start to learn these traditions and compete on a more appropriate level. This year we're so excited to say that we have a sponsor. Banner Ford has agreed to be our children's Highland Games sponsor, and this year those Highland Games are going to be led by New Iona Presbyterian Church.
Officials are really excited about being able to have kids involved in the Highland Games, and of course the regular Highland Games as well. Of course, I'm excited, so they want people to come out, have a great time at the Celtic Festival this year. There's also other events coming up, proceeds going towards the festival. One of those is actually happening August 16th and 17th at the West Monroe Convention Center. It's a murder mystery dinner theater called Altos in Lazard Park. I'm Charles Burkett. Back to you.